Hey guys, it's Izzy here, and today I'm going to be doing my April wrap-up. Let's get into this video. And if you guys would like to know anything about my outfit today, definitely check out my ASMR channel because I am going to be doing a video all about my outfit. So I still have 3 books that I'm currently reading in April, so this stack is going to grow because I think this is my smallest stack so far this year. But for my mood reading, I really focused on classics this month, so you are going to hear about several books that you have probably heard of before. And if you guys would like a synopsis of any of these books featured in this video, be sure to check out my TBR video that I did at the start of the month, because that is where I go into the synopsis. In this video, I just give you my thoughts on these books. Also, if you would like to see my thoughts written out, be sure to check out my Goodreads reviews, which I will leave linked down below in the pinned comment. Let's get into it. The first book that I finished this month was To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. So I gave this a 4-star. This was a mood read for me. So the characters were great in this. Scout was my favorite character, and it was interesting to see this time period and this location through the point of view of a child. At some points, I would have liked to see the point of view of other characters, but also I'm content with what we got in this book. I loved the southern setting and found myself comparing a lot. This book takes place in 1935 in Alabama. Comparing it to today, a lot has changed, but at the same time a lot hasn't, and that is really bad for just like racial relations and that kind of thing is what I'm talking about. It's just seeing how the treatment of Black people in the American South. This book was published in 1960 but takes place in 1935, so reading it in 2022, it's a ball game. It's a lot. But I think this is an extremely important book to read. It is very prevalent, and I think it holds the test of time, where somebody reading it 70 years after it was published, 60 years, my bad, that it was published, it blows my mind how just, it feels like this book could have come out today. It's hard to believe that it came out that long ago, but I think this is an extremely important read. And if you are someone in school watching this, I know it can be daunting to read books in school, but I really, really think this is one that you should actually read and not go just look up the Spark Notes for or whatever. Actually pay attention to what your teachers are teaching you about it, and even do your own research as well. Always do your own research on everything, and just really pay attention to this book. We have a nonfiction that also has bird in the title, and that is Yellowbird, Oil, Murder, and a Woman's Search for Justice in Indian Country by Sierra Crane Murdoch. This was my first time reading a true crime nonfiction work. As I'm not a true crime junkie like some, I know a lot of y'all are, I still enjoyed this book and got a lot out of it. Writing was poetic, but yet it was knowledgeable at the same time, and I wasn't really expecting that. With a lot of nonfiction books, I feel like it can be very dry and read like a Wikipedia article, but no, this just brought out your senses, and Sierra Crane Murdoch did a fantastic job on the writing. But it did get lengthy at times, so that also falls into the writing category. The chapters really without Lisa I found to be very boring and slow, and I just didn't care that much about them. I like that this didn't just focus on the murder, but it also focused on what life is like on a reservation, especially today, and just the history of Native Americans, specifically in North Dakota. I didn't know a ton. I've only read one other book that takes place on a reservation, and that was a fictional one, but just seeing the drugs and money issues and just a lot criminal justice issues that have to do around reservations, I found very interesting, as we don't really have that many in my part of the country. So getting to learn about another part of the country, getting to learn more about American government and history was very fascinating for me. I read a graphic novel next, that being Batman Detective Comics Volume 1, Faces of Death by Tony S. Daniel. This was better than a lot of the Batman comics that I have read. I did enjoy my time reading it. Am I going to pick up the next one right away? No, it is on my Amazon wishlist, so if I ever, if somebody bought it for me, I'd read it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to read it myself. We have a 2-star now, and this might get to some people. So this is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. This was a finalist for Book of the Year of 2021 at Book of the Month. I don't know how. The characters here, I don't think they were made to be likable, but you can still have unlikable characters and have them enjoyable to read from. No, I didn't even enjoy them. I didn't like them. I didn't enjoy reading from them. And if I can't connect with characters, can I really connect with the story? The side characters and even the sons of the characters in the story were underdeveloped. We would get brand chapters from the side characters, but I was just getting all their names confused, and they weren't really that important because they weren't developed. So I couldn't connect with them because underdeveloped. I don't know if the first two are underdeveloped, but I couldn't connect with them either. So this is a bit picky, and it's not just for this book. So this book is set in Virginia, which I like. I am very well versed with Virginia. I go there quite often, but we're in fictional locations for the most part. They go to Richmond some, but I don't like when books have fictional locations in a real place. I'm like, you have so many towns and cities to choose from in that state. Why not just choose a real one? But again, that is not just for this book, and that doesn't really take away from my reading experience, but it's just something that I wanted to talk about. I don't have any complaints about the writing. It was fine. I think the dialogue was really good. I think it was spot on for Virginia, and the characters really read like they were from there, and you can tell the author is from Virginia. And the plot was all right, nothing special. This book touched on a lot of current issues. The one that stood out to me the most was what happens to felons once they get out of prison? Like, can they be employed, and just the judgment they get? I don't think it's right, and I think this book did a good job at showcasing that, as it really made me think a lot and do my own research. Now we have a 3-star young adult fantasy, that being The Crown's Game by Evelyn Scott. Most young adult fantasy, the characters were not tremendously developed. Pasha's chapters were my favorite, and then I found Nikolai's chapters being quite boring, and it's kind of sad as he was one of the main characters in this story. End of the story, the characters were just starting to make decisions that I feel like weren't like them. They were just very random, and they didn't resonate with the characters at all. So atmosphere, I really like when fantasy books take place in the real world. Here we see places like Russia, which was Imperial Russia, to let you know, so some of those locations are not currently part of Russia. And then we have like Kazakhstan, and I just really like when we have fantasy taking place in a real world location. Chapters were short and easy to read. I can't ask for much more. That's amazing. So really thought for the plot that this was going to go one way, and I'm like, that's so basic, but then it didn't. So I was pleasantly surprised. I really liked the ending for this. But I do think the romance was a bit unnecessary and just added in drama that we didn't need. I think it would have been fine without it, but I'm not a huge love triangle person, so that might just be a personal preference for me. I think this book is my favorite this month, but it was a very meh reading month. I didn't like a lot of the books, so we're just fine. But we have Medici Legacy by Matteo Struckel now. So Catherine is the most well-written out of all the Medici characters that have been in this trilogy so far. Chapters were very gripping and just brought you into the story. Her personality and just overall character were such well developed. The atmosphere here was new to me, as the previous books have taken place in Italy. This one was in France, so I did have to adjust to that, but I haven't read that many books that take place in France during this time period, so it was something new and enjoyable. I devoured this book. The writing was great. It was easy to read and just easy to get right into the story. And it wasn't like, by saying easy, it's not like it's bad. It got its point across, but didn't make it too difficult and descriptive for the reader to read. Followed many years of Catherine's life, and I think that really helped with developing her character, as we got to see what experiences caused her become the person that she became and why she does these actions that she does. Of course, there were politics, political intrigue, court drama, so I really liked reading that because that is something I really like in my historical fiction novels. Now we had the one that took me forever to read. This is like a 3.5 on Goodreads. That's a 4-star, but that is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And this was so relatable and seemed like real people. Just their romance, it seemed so real, and I could relate to them so much with that element. The characters were just flawed and felt like real people, and that's only the best type of characters for me, when they feel like they could really be real people. I think the setting could have been better, as there was a lot of back and forth in this book, so I wasn't sure where we were, what time period we were in. So I think maybe adding timestamps and location stamps could have been good, but this book did come out like over 30 years ago, so like I doubt they're gonna add that in now, but I do think that would have made it easier to read. The writing was beautiful, very descriptive. It's a dense read, I'm not going to lie. His books are dense, but I think it's well worth it. It's just so beautiful, and you can feel the romance. It was romantic writing. This is how romance should be. It's not just cutesy and adding in petty drama. This is romance. This is what real life romance is like. So what was the downfall of this book for me? Why is it not a 5-star? Why is it a 3.5 or whatever I gave it? It just went on and on at parts. I'm like, it was just lengthy. I felt like it could have been way shorter. Like, it's not even that long of a book, but I feel like it could have been way shorter. There wasn't a whole lot of plot. Again, this is very character development, but once you have it going very long with character development, it can just get a bit boring. So maybe if it had more of a plot, I would have devoured it more, to keep using that word. So then I did a reread, and that is The Tempest by William Shakespeare. Very short, you know, just to get me closer to my Goodreads goal. Sorry, not sorry. This, I did not know this is a condensed, shorter retelling version. So luckily, as I said, this was a reread, so I already knew what the story was about and all going in. But I do think these little additions from bakerstreetreaders.co.uk, I think this is, maybe if you haven't read Shakespeare before, maybe read one of these short little ones to see if you vibe with his writing, and if you do, pick up the full version of The Tempest. But with this, I was getting characters confused and all, because there's only one female character in this version, so all the rest were men. So I was just getting like all the men confused because they all have kind of similar names and all of that. So I did get confused a bit, but luckily this wasn't like my first time with Shakespeare, but I do think I am going to reread the full play at some point. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!